You have to have patience. You have to do things to keep your company afloat to survive, but also not necessarily hoping, but being ready for when the tide turns. It will turn sooner or later. It probably is never going to go back to what it used to be, but it's going to pick up sooner or later, and that's where a lot of people in your position in organizations get stuck, because they don't know how to manage the day-to-day here and now, but also how to prepare for the year, 2 years down the line. They are perceiving it as one or the other, binary, right? And I get that, because that's how our human brains work. We like to solve problems, and we position that as a problem. But then if you position that as both things that you need to do, and each of them has an upside and a downside, you just kind of need to figure out the balance between them.
No, I like the way you put it in the versus to and I don't necessarily agree with that it's like super binary and therefore it's hard to understand. I think it's actually logically it's not so hard to come to that conclusion and like, okay, we have to do both, we have to think about the future, we have to do this and now. That, like, accepting that, at least for me, that, or seeing the need for that's not the challenging part. The hard part is more kind of the choices and the execution that go with this. And I can elaborate on that. So by choices, I mean both in terms of where and how to optimize, like here and now, ongoing operations and so on. And for the end part, like when thinking about how to look at the future, what are the bets that we want to make? Like where to focus, how to read the markets and trends, how to connect that to your long-term vision. And finding time to do both of this at the same time. It's super easy to, let's say you plan a strategy workshop where, you're trying to crowdsource ideas and discuss what you want to do for the future. It takes approximately 10 minutes and then we're back into firefighting. And like, oh, but we have to solve this first and we have to do this now. And tomorrow we have this review and next month. So it's super, you have to like really remind yourself that, okay, yes, there are a bunch of things that we need to do here and now, but we really need to allow ourselves to carve out a little bit of time to think about what do we want in the future? Where do we want to focus? How do we come out of this period? Where do we want to be better than we are today? And where do we want to do less of? So those conversations are very important to make time for, essentially, and like stay there, stay on the future for a couple of sessions at least, so you have some rough idea. And then the execution part of all of this is equally important. So it's timing, communication, following through, both for the here and now and the kind of future capabilities that you want to build.
I know it might be potentially a very difficult question to answer, because it's probably one of those things that you might actually be doing without thinking about it too much. But how do you find that balance? Because in most cases, it tends to be firefighting. Whatever the new thing comes in, it tends to go onto the top of the priority list rather than the bottom of the priority list. And that's why that balance is shifted. How do you, because you say you try and carve out time. Is there a specific approach, practice do you have that you keep yourself accountable to and therefore your team? How do you approach that?
This is one of the activities that I recommend doing on site in the same room, not virtually. There are many things works great in the kind of online environment, but these specific type of things, I recommend that you really get somewhere, but basically in a nice environment, lock yourself up in a room and this is what you do for a couple of hours, like really practically make time for it. Like the whole purpose of the team being here now is to talk about the future. That helps it a little bit, because you get away from like daily stuff and firefighting and so on. And then you can apply whatever method you like, if it's design thinking or if it's stickers or if it's a mural board or whatnot, but the sheer like concept of, okay, we're now here, we have a 2-day agenda, we're going to talk about all of the things that we need to solve, but one part of it is going to be focused on the future, like, so then it is on everybody's like understanding that, okay, it's not like we're down prioritizing everything else, or we're not taking care of really important things we have to do here and now. It's more that we are doing both. So it's not that. It sounds like it's common sense, but it's you really have to force yourself to also like give the big picture to people, so that everybody understands that, okay, this session is dedicated for things that we need to do later on, or that we need to prepare for, but it's more like on the horizon. Yes, and just try to keep people there mentally.
So you're right. It's common sense, but that's the thing about common sense these days. It's not very common, and I think that's the problem that we've got, is that we actually get so caught up in many things that we overcomplicate, overanalyze a lot of things. Great, that's the planning part. You got into a room, you planned things out, everybody's happy, everybody's energized. You leave the room. What happens then? How do you move from planning to that execution part? And again, maintaining that balance of doing the future stuff, but also looking after the day to day.
Well, I think everybody usually are tired after these sessions.
Depends how much coffee there was in the room.
Maybe a little bit energized, but also tired. No, I think that I think it's about like project management mindset. Maybe it's about prioritizing among all of these things that pop up. It's about like seeing, okay, what needs to happen, and I really like to try to connect this into like the reality of what we need to do. Like, what does this mean in practice? What do we need to do that we're not doing today? Are we stopping to do something? What will change in my daily work? Like, and I'm thinking of this like from an organizational point of view. So, okay, if we want to go there, what will this mean for all the teams? What will very practically need to change? And then start planning out how it can happen and what needs to happen. And if it's, I mean, it could differ if it's around like policies, or if it's around an area that we want to increase our capability in, or it could be that we need a system for something. I mean, it could be so many different things, but try to break it down. I try, and this is both for short-term and long-term strategy, I think. I try to break it down together with the team and everybody involved. What does this mean in practice? What do we need to do?
That's actually a very interesting point of you saying, okay, what does that mean from a practical point of view? What do you need to do with your teams? And I understand that obviously it's different areas that, depending on what's going on, depending on the situation, depending on what you're focusing, that need to adjust. Are there any areas that you most often need to adjust, whether it's a policy, whether it's a process? And are these major changes or more on kind of minor tweaks of how you work together as a team?